Today we're covering Wall-E.
Wall-E.
I thought it was Vala. A Pixar movie that exists. This is Frame Rate, the show where we rate frames. I'm Michael Swaim. I'm pointing at my co-host.
I'm not looking at you, but I know what you're doing.
He's watching a streamer on mute on his tablet.
No, I'm just trying to open up my
time.
notes for this podcast so like people come here for the hits.
Okay.
And they want to know some good trivia.
Fine.
I'm here for that. So
That's Abe Epperson. We're
I'm
also
Abe Epperson.
incredibly honored to have Star Hodge with us.
Hi.
Say hi, Star. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course.
And you selected Wall-E.
Yeah.
From a list of many potentials. No one has yet to select Freaked, the movie that I have
did
my
not,
fingers crossed for.
I don't know what that movie is.
No one knows.
Alex Winters.
It's the only movie other than Bill and Ted's movies that Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves appear in, and Keanu Reeves is uncredited.
Really?
And he has a full face prosthesis, so you cannot tell it's him.
I will come back and do that one if I could watch it with you guys.
It's my favorite comedy.
It's
film
a
of
good
all time.
comedy.
Okay.
It's like Airplane level in terms of like efficiency.
Yeah, I feel like that needs to be watched with people.
Yeah.
And not
Ooh,
like,
yeah, we should watch it together.
And it's about a circus.
People who have seen this will know how fucked up I am. I also keep leaning on Adam Ganzer to guest, specifically only because I want to make him watch Ichi the Killer in front of me, like with me.
And you can laugh maniacally.
I just want to
behind him.
see what like a man of God's reaction to Ichi the Killer is. Is that sick of me?
No, I just don't think that defines Adam necessarily. Like he'll find a way to weasel out of what
course.
you want.
He'll have film opinions instead.
Yeah.
So Star, as our guest, I'd love to hear your opening spiel on Wall-E. Did you rewatch it for the purposes of this?
I did. I
Okay.
rewatched it on Monday.
Have you seen it 12 times like us?
No. Here's the thing.
Okay.
Like, I think I've maybe watched Wall-E twice before rewatching it again, and the time I rewatched it was back when it came out.
Right.
And I remember. I mean, I still cried on Monday. Like halfway through the movie, I'm just tearing up and just being like, "Oh man, this was so good."
Do you remember what part got you?
Honestly, whenever Wall-E is just appreciating humanity,
Define dancing.
and like I cried when he helped the guy go back into his chair, and the guy was just like, "Hi," like I forgot his
I'm
name.
John.
He's like, "I'm John," and
Cliff
Wally's
Clavin
like,
from Cheers.
Wall-E, and then like I was just like, people, just like having like this this robot who like reeks of humanity
Out there.
like bring humanity back to people, and it's just makes me happy.
It's not
Yeah,
totally alone in the genre, but I do think it's the vast minority, and it's a refreshing idea that AI and robotics could save us.
Yeah.
Like, we usually have two responses, which is AI will never become fully sentient, so it won't rise up. And other people are like, it will become fully sentient, and therefore we're fucked. And there's now like a popular opinion that's, well, maybe we will blend with them and like cyborgs will become the future. But Wall-E's a fourth option, which is, what if we totally fall from grace? And basically, we
Become
need
their
robot
pets?
Jesus to
Like-
show us the way.
We're their pets essentially.
Yeah,
Like, they're just
they're
taking
slaves.
care of us.
That's where robots.
No, we're there. Well,
No, we're there.
Well, that's what that's my opinion. I like the interpretation of Wall-E and just, in general robotic lit, I guess. Is that a term? I don't know. But like the idea that as we slough off parts of ourselves, which is the disease that all the fat people on the Axiom had, which is that they don't have to work, they just have leisure, right? So as we slough off the work part of our brain, we're passing that over to these robots to complete,
which
and
is the point of tools and robots.
But in that integration of society into that formula, we pass a piece of ourselves, which the robots pick up. And so that's why there's a beautiful union at the end, and the handshake with John is so salient to me. Because it's two parts of humanity interacting with each other, finally, again, remarrying.
Yeah.
It's
well,
beautiful.
also, I love that you just made me realize Wall-E's whole function is to stay behind and gather the things that humans have discarded that they may want later.
And I feel like that's how he gained a personality. It must have been.
Totally, because you see that he's obsessed with
Yeah, and I mean,
but that's what he does with
spoilers for the end
itself.
when he gets rebooted for a hot second, and he just turns back into like a robot without a personality at all.
Clean slate. Yeah.
That's what it just. I mean, at least in that moment, I was just like, oh, that just. I mean, how it was 700 years that he's functioning, I assume.
Yeah.
Probably took that long.
So it took
for a person.
that long
right.
to like start looking at the things around you and like
Yeah.
picking up and learning and then becoming sentient.
Like kind of a Zen practice of just like raking the sand. He's just taking out the trash and enough of that. And you just go, oh, there's something else here.
Yeah.
What do you think about that message? Because actually, that's something Kurt Vonnegut talked a lot about that came up in our Kurt Vonnegut podcast.
End of it
is that we outsource work to machines, and that deprives us of a purpose for existing and dignity in some way. And I always found that I don't agree, or I don't understand. Would it be bad if robots did all of our jobs and we could do whatever we want? I don't believe that people would just watch TV and eat snacks. I think we would do a bunch of cool shit.
I feel that part always, like, if you think, it's one of those movies where if I start thinking about it too hard, then it doesn't fall apart, but it just makes me go, I'm like, oh, okay, this is definitely like, it's a kid's movie. Don't think too hard about it, because they've been on this ship for, generations. Mm-hmm. And there's no new media content in the sense of like, there's nobody's telling stories. No one's like I feel like there would always be someone who's creating, if not a physical thing, if those needs are met, but like mental things like puzzles and games. And
yeah, I agree.
Like,
I agree.
Just, you'd be making things to figure out.
Or people would be, we have natural curiosity, would be like, you'd want to explore different sectors of space. You'd want, like, there's a natural, indomitable human curiosity, I think, to create and figure out. Why did we point north? Elucidate.
I think that the only you guys agree, and I agree, but the only fissure in this debate right now seems to be about like what tasks are outsourced and what the value, what's valuable to ourselves in those specific tasks. And I was bringing up that, yes, if I don't have to like attach a rotor onto a car, that doesn't necessarily, I don't know what that is, but maybe a guy who's done that for 10 years has found some humanity in that, or maybe not. But one thing that's directly parallel to this that I think everyone can share is our outsourcing to the iPhone, the idea of like, or GPS. Like, we don't need to know maps. We don't need to know
I don't know how to spell for shit.
Yeah, you don't need to spell. You get autocorrect.
But I guess the scary questions to me are...
That's more available to
questioning
everyone.
Myself, who just said, well, art is the answer, but what about if theoretically we create a robot that can write better screenplays than any human can write? Shouldn't we just stop? Or beyond that even, what if you have the ability to directly stimulate your brain in such a way that you have the feeling that you just saw a great movie? Do you even need to have movies anymore?
Well, I think there should be
that's okay.
There should be AI. There should definitely be AI filmmakers, but I don't think that we should all adopt that philosophy. That's just a part
I would say the first half of it, I disagree because otherwise nobody would be making things because everybody. Right. We all consume content that are like, I don't know if I could ever make something like that. That doesn't stop people from trying to still make their own content.
That's true.
So
and it's subjective. Yeah. So who's to say the Robots is the best movie ever?
So the robot's going to make an amazing and be like, oh man, that was beautiful and amazing. I want to make something that like that. That's, I think, more of the instinct. Yeah. But if you make a thing that triggers that sense of like, ooh, that satisfactory feeling of watching a thing, I don't know, because that sounds amazing.
Take your movie pill.
It's also that, and
pill.
I'd save time too. Like, I would get that feeling, and I could do. But then I'm like, well, then what am I doing? Because all I do is like to create. So I'm always looking for that feeling.
I also think our generational zeitgeist is very in love with robots and logic right now, because in a world that is so chaotic, in a world that's so chaotic and kind of doesn't make sense to us, we like the cold application of processes that like a robot would utilize. Like, I don't know. For me, for example, when I watch a movie like Annihilation or like WALL-E, or I see like the
very similar
films, but just the idea of it's just a steady operation of a very simple procedure. Like, he has just got one function. It's just robot meets robot, just fall in love. But he's just like, all I care about is Eve. That's the only purpose to that. Or in Annihilation, where it's just like this disease that is just taking over things, and it's just like, I just duplicate. I don't know. Or like we talked about yesterday, because we had a podcast with Dan.
I like the idea that
where
the
the
Shimmer
Martians
would
and
be-
Mars Attacks are basically just like, we just
Oh,
want to
Mars
fuck
Attacks.
with you. Yeah.
But I like the idea that the Shimmer and Annihilation would be like apologetic, like, oh, you didn't want that? I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to duplicate that, but like, I'm sorry about
just
it.
leaving it there. But my point is that like our culture right now, I think, likes that kind of. There's a safety in that net. There's a little bit of this like comfort in this idea of like, well, 2 + 2 = 4, and that I do know. Everything else is like a fucking bag of cats.
I mean, it helps that in WALL-E though, like the robots weren't the reason why we left the planet.
right. But
So like if the robots were any part of the reason why we like screwed up everything, then I think it'd be a different
And the
story.
robots are arbitrarily harmless, meaning like there's no robot in WALL-E that you actually fear. There's the
Otto?
villain who is the robot, who is literally just following orders and doesn't actually
exactly.
show
Yeah.
sentience. So
and
it's
so
like
we're fearful
it's
of
a
our
human
devotion.
error.
Yeah, but we're fearful of our devotion to it because we like the idea. That's why science fiction always works, is that the second we fall in love with something, we think about, what if this thing that we fell in
Betrayed
love with
me.
betrayed me?
What if Fred Willard betrayed us?
What if one of us is the thing? Like it's just this kind of it's this object permanence. It's this thing that's just always there, and we're like I was having a conversation with our fans on Discord about home, the word home, about like you can think of a house and you can think of a home, and they are two different words, but they have such drastic meanings.
Oh yeah.
And I think that with robots and WALL-E, he really tugs at our heartstrings about what we do like about robots, and we hope is true about robots, and then put him with an antagonist like Otto, which is the thing that we fear about robots.
A robot who's not evil, but it's not open to
No.
influence because it doesn't know. It's just doing what it does. and it
Robots
happens
play
to be
by the
fucking
rules
it.
that we understand, but it's a
Right.
little system that they can.
So
Whereas
you
WALL-E-
cannot reason with Otto.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's like a worldwide love of technology right now. I think there's a lot of hate for like the perceived isolation that social media.
You're probably right,
dispatches and
percentile,
stuff.
but like I'm just saying, like more than ever, like the Industrial Revolution, like the Atomic Age. There's many times that we have like suddenly perked up and looked around and said like this is a thing, but not everyone was with that trend. I'm just saying more than because of our information highways and our internets and all that, we are more. We are so close now to the idea of AI and robotics that a movie
I'm on
like
board
this.
personally. Go for it.
I
They
frankly
can't fuck it up more than we've already started fucking it up.
I do believe and have the feeling that mankind's destiny will turn out to be to barely get to the point where we can give birth to a better life form than ourselves, which will do a better job. Like, I think we'll be remembered as the honored ancients who gave rise to robots, which will be a much better form of life
That's
than
fine.
we are.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
So we should talk about this movie, though.
We
right?
have. You just mentioned Otto.
I know, but I want to talk
But I
about
was gonna
some
say
of the
he-
minutia of what makes
Yeah.
this movie work.
Well,
And-
part of what makes you like WALL-E flies in the face of what you just said, I think, or combines with it.
Yeah.
He acts distinctly human, right?
Yes.
He
Yes.
likes musicals.
And just-
That's
and
weird.
because of his
for a robot.
eyes. His eyes are
His
expressive.
character design is so good.
It's on
Very
point.
minimal.
They knew, they were like, okay, we're going to have two shapes. We're going to have a teardrop shape, round, apple-like. Everybody likes the sleek design. And we're going to have a box with big baby eyes and
Box with
squeaky
big
little
baby
sounds. And that's all you need. And his design's so
And
like,
the way his eyes
wonderful.
are shaped, they imply eyebrows that can only take three positions, like sad, angry, and happy, which is all he ever needs to be.
Hopeful.
Yeah.
Hopeful is the big one.
Sad and hopeful, I think, are only a few degrees off with the eye angle.
Out there.
Yeah.
He's like, when he looks at Hello Dolly and he's like tapping his
little fingers, the little
how they
clasp.
intersect. Yeah, just in this little.
Well, he's
like,
practicing
cusp way.
holding hands. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also it's like the way that they meet.
This movie-
is so intertwined, like it's entangled in a like very, like the movement that the animators
Yeah.
did made it seem so fucking
Oh
childlike.
my god, dude!
and
John
beautiful.
Lasseter
Yeah.
had to scream so hard at his animators to get that.
Well,
shot that
this
good.
is Andrew Scranton.
It's a great
now.
job, Stanton. Yeah.
Stanton, sorry,
Did you know I just read actually?
Scantron.
Well, wait, or no, that was Incredibles. Brad Bird basically was going to get steamrolled by Lasseter, but Steve Jobs personally stepped in on his behalf and like stopped him,
Oh,
where
wow.
The Incredibles
Oh,
would have
really?
sucked. Or at least been vastly different.
Yeah.
And I really like it, so I choose to
I'm
believe it would
also,
have been worse.
it's weird. I'm also impressed with how they designed the roach because I don't
Sure.
like them.
The two little.
Yeah.
Oh, like how do you make a roach
How do you make a
gross
roach
to look at?
gross and like, I mean, even then, I mean, I was still kind of skin crawling whenever the roach was just all over them just to be like, I'm a little cute little pet thing. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm not
he, like,
feeling
gets
it.
into
But I
Wall-E at
felt
one
bad
point.
when he stepped on it. I mean, it was fine. But there was like a moment of like, oh, and the fact that his reaction, that moment, like his reaction, he steps on the roach and he's just like, what have I done? But he
Yeah.
kind of also accepted it really fast.
Well, he's
He
a
had
robot.
like half a second of like, what have I done? Oh no. And then it moved and he was like, okay. But
Yeah.
I'm so happy you mentioned this because this is literally a note I have. What you're citing is right before he takes off to go to Eve. That's like 18 minutes into the film. There's 22 minutes of the beginning of the movie that there's no dialogue other
know.
than Fred Willard.
And the lyrics to Singing in the Rain.
And yeah, the lyrics. But like just the idea that in a whole boy meets girl story,
Mm-hmm.
first act of your play, essentially, almost. Because he leaves like 25, 30
Right.
minutes. Yeah, but anyway, the first human dialogue is 39 minutes into the movie. And that's like the John interaction.
Fred Willard, of course, not a human, so that
Not
doesn't
really a
count.
human, yeah.
Not really.
I mean, he's a
outside of
hologram.
like background
No,
noise
but I
and
mean, Fred
stuff.
Willard, the thing, is not really a human
Like they
creature.
did, they did a good job of trying to show you how like BNN is it BNN?
BNL.
BNL,
Big and large.
yeah,
Bare Naked Ladies,
took
Bare Naked Ladies.
took over,
by and large.
but took over the planet essentially,
Yeah.
and just
Price
which
Club.
yeah, which also
Oscar.
weirded me out because I was like, is this like
Price
he's the
Club.
president? He's the president of whatever
Of the
this-
company and the world?
of the company
It's
and
like
the
unclear,
world.
yeah.
And I'm like, I have to imagine that it's the world because if it's just the U.S., because a lot of the cultural everything's, it's just
Right.
very. I
Then
mean,
why would he be the
We
one on the
don't
tape that
know-
Otto sees that says "Don't return to Earth" if he's not like leader of the world?
Yeah.
It's true that the Axiom, people who live there they look very like a cross section of America.
Yeah.
You know?
I like. Are there other ships?
There doesn't seem.
Are there other
everything's
divisions of
spoken-
BNL?
Man,
There could be.
Imagine if at the end of the movie, the U.S. ship returns home and like learns how to fish and heal the world, and they're like, "Should we tell like Russia and like Asia and Africa to
No,
come
they're
back?"
dead.
They're like, "Nah, fuck
I
them."
will say, like on my rewatch, because I could have sworn the first time I watched it that more than one ship came back, and then watching it again,
like in the credits mosaic stuff. or
yeah,
what?
like
Okay.
I thought like the signal of a plant going in sends a signal to the other ships because I couldn't imagine
Axiom is
how do
just
you
a flagship.
yeah how do you fill the entire world's population unless how many people died? Like it's either really tragic where there was
Right.
not a lot
I
of
mean,
people at all.
overpopulation assume like 10 billion, and
Right.
there's only like what 6,000 people on the Axiom or
Right.
something like
Yeah,
that.
Everyone
so
on the Axiom
I have to
speaks
imagine
English,
there's
but
more
that-
ships.
It could be mute movie magic. Like it's always hard to tell in a movie if everyone's speaking English or the movie is just in English. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
well, it's
but
over
I mean,
7,000,
Oh, there-
700 years.
there is when it's doing the intro to like Wall-E going through and entering the Axiom, that it crosses across like the teachers that are like teaching the kids words and like you are here at Axiom. I do remember at one point there's Chinese characters, so it
So it's
might
an
be
arc.
there's a multinational kind of thing, but it's not specified.
I don't know
never
what's.
saw-
I don't know what makes me feel better. The idea that BNL took over the world
Mm-hmm.
and somehow homogenized culture in
Yeah.
such a way that it like because that's really sad in its,
It's
own way.
Walmart, not
or I'd have or the other alternative is like so many people died.
Yeah. I
so
think
many
that's
people
what
died that
happened,
it had
actually.
to like.
You're in a rock and a hard place with the
I
apocalypse.
am pretty sure that there is no reference or implication of other ships. I do think it's an arc that holds all remaining surviving humans, which has to be very
That's
few.
because they
sad.
want it to be a closed system,
It's
so
not
they don't want
Walmart.
to bring it up.
It's Allmart.
Well,
Yeah.
I think what it is it's not necessary that it's taken, like it may be true, but I don't know what the creators
They obviously
thought.
don't want you to think
It's-
about it.
No, they
want you to
don't.
think
They
about
don't
it,
want you to
but
think
they
about
don't
it
want
at
you
all.
to think that like necessarily like the corporate aspect of capitalism has taken over like the politics of it. They just BNL happen to have the resources to create spaceships.
I disagree. I think they are satirically trying to say that corporations and governments will converge, but maybe that's because that's what I believe.
I think that's only because he
yeah,
looks like
'cause
in his shot, he looks like he's behind a presidential podium, but
Yeah.
there's no like official American seal.
So you think by and large literally was like, look, our bad. We're primarily responsible for ruining the earth, so we'll build the ship.
See,
And we wanna go too.
I took it as BNL became so big that is like too big to
That they
fail
merged with the
that they
government.
merged with the
That's what I
government
thought,
and
too.
they became the government.
It could be true.
Because it's all about buy everything you need, consume. I think that was definitely the message of like,
What's the truth, Fred Willard? Well, Michael, it's good to be here.
It's gonna be our Fred.
Fred Willard from
But-
Best of the Shows.
And the by and large.
Get on
And-
point, Fred.
I mean, I hope the ship keeps running because otherwise you lose so much information or like knowledge because them coming back and like restarting humanity.
Sure, let's jump to that because
Right.
everyone has lots of questions about the end. My main two questions, I'll start with just the one that
Yeah.
you're alluding to is, wouldn't a bunch of obese people who live their whole lives in floating
they would not
chairs
be
watching
okay.
movies try for a week and then be like, fuck this, I'm not living like this, and go back on the ship? How did it work? How did they convince them to work
What
hard
if a
and
piece
stay
of your
on Earth?
soul you felt for a long time since you've ever lived on the
Mhm.
Axiom, being like the nth generation, that there was a part of you that wasn't whole, and it crept
I feel
into
like
your
that
soul
now, and I
every
don't do
night.
anything about it.
And then you put your feet on dirt and grass, and then you finally find that. It's that river quote from Firefly.
My thinking along that line is that they're all big babies.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're children
Yeah.
in adult bodies, and if you give and they listen to the robots. So if the robots are like, this is the task we're doing, they're going to do it because it's again 700 years. That's a lot
Yeah.
of generations.
That's my point. I still have to believe there's an attrition process. So I'm just saying, to get onto the Axiom, 98% of people on Earth probably died. And then to return to Earth, I bet
they've had to been really wealthy too.
I think
huh?
90% of the people on the Axiom probably die toiling in the fields. I'm not saying that everyone dies, but I just think those Peter Gabriel credits gloss over some mosaics of people like starving and warring against each other.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't think they would have starved because if they would just go back on the ship and the ship would feed them. They still have the ship's still a functioning.
Then why
ship.
farm and fish?
I think just for the sake of
For the sake
doing
of
it
reinvigorating your
and
soul?
making this place home.
No,
Fuck
I
that.
think it's about not
It's
living on the
humanity.
ship anymore. That's what they lost. So like this is my interpretation. I'm not saying that the filmmakers had this, but like the way it sits home with me is that they are reigniting civilization not because of
Not for
they
survival.
just need to.
Right.
It's just that they are tired of the civilization that they had,
Right.
and it's the new revolution of now we're farmers,
And everything
because that's
and
how we
everything
have
in
to
that,
live if we want to live here.
in
I think
that
that
sense would be new.
romanticizes farming more than it. Have tried farming for a
Oh.
while. It's not fucking fun or like enlightening.
I would
Yeah.
I would say I would assume that it's like everything is new for them. Like
Right.
on the ship, you know exactly what's going to happen. Everything's to the T. Everything's done for you. It'd be like you're living in this apartment for your whole life and you never really got to go outside. And then one day somebody like takes you outside and it's just like, oh, hey, you could go do things if you want to. You could always come back. But
the
now you could go
Axiom's-
outside and do things.
The Axiom is better than my apartment significantly. Full disclosure, when I see things like Ready Player One, I'm like, I would live in a
Yeah,
virtual
you're gonna-
pod.
I
I don't
would live
see
in-
what the problem is, honestly.
You are the reason that what is that quote? The holodeck is the final invention of the human
humanity.
race. Yeah.
Sure. I don't. Who says that? Kirk?
Bradbury. I can't remember.
Yeah. The other question I always want to ask people about the end is, it's an obvious Jesus parable because he sacrifices himself, and then he's brought back by the kiss of true love. So it's like a fairy tale
Yeah.
combined with the Jesus parable.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just too dark of a person, but I think Wally should be dead at the end. Either stay dead or, even better, because I like the maximum amount of suffering in the movie, he should have stayed blanked.
Right. Love conquers all. Even programming is.
Yeah.
His-
I'm saying that's stupid.
if they would have done that,
I think it should have taken another 700 years for him to have regained his personality. So you could have like the montage of the credits where he's helping rebuild society, but just as a blank robot, and then post-credit scene where it's 700 years later, society's completely rebuilt, and he looks at Ava and is like, Ava? Like, he recognizes her. I would be like, boom, you earned it. But I don't like how she just kisses him and there's static electricity in his
it's
life
because
again.
if there was a sequel, it would be a
I would have, I had
slow-
to for me to fix that in my brain. I had to go like, okay, there's some part in a like mechanism that his actual like hard drive or memory is stored, because otherwise none of that makes sense.
And
He's
as we all
still a
know,
computer.
electrocuting a hard drive restores the
Well,
data.
he withstands like a shit ton of stuff. Like
That's
they
true.
showed him in the
Yeah.
beginning able to withstand heat from a rocket, and he was fine.
Space without any kind of protection,
Yeah,
even though he
so-
wasn't built to go into space, which is amazing.
Yeah, so I
He
was like,
doesn't need to
okay,
breathe.
he's a pretty tough. He's
But he
a
goes
tough
to
little
the
robot.
atmosphere, and like she said, he's fine. It's just he's impressive. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying he's impressive.
Like the rocket came down that's like melt, like anything would melt.
Yeah, it's
right, but
and he's
jet
just
fuel
like,
can't
I'm just-
melt steel, Star.
And he just buried himself in this dirt. Like this
A
is
crab.
fine. And then
I
came
am a
out
robot crab.
several times. So I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm. he's hardy, but that
Although
I
his-
still agree
yeah.
with. I'm not disagreeing with you. Mike and I have talked about this at length. In fact, when we first watched it in 2008 or 9, whenever it came out, it came out in 2008, but I think at the end of the year. But we were moving out of our San Diego apartment, and we were, or I guess house, and we had finished up our work. We'd put things in
Mhm.
boxes, and we're just sitting around, and we're like, I'm tired of putting shit in boxes and cleaning. Do you want to go to Wally?
oh,
And so he and I went to Wally, and we caught like an 11 p.m. show or something like that. So we were up until like we got out of it at like almost 1. And then we sat there and talked for about an hour and a half about Wally, even though we should have been going
It's
to bed.
still my favorite
And
Pixar.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And the script is in top 5 scripts of the last decade for me.
Mhm.
But one of the things that we talked about is we both agreed that because it was a children's film, in essence, because Pixar is universal. Adults can like it, but children also need to be able to like it. They don't drop F-bombs.
yeah.
Like, except for that one that Wally just looks direct to camera and says fuck. But, you know.
He says it in code.
Yeah, he says it in 1s and 0s. But we talked about how we're like soulless, and what does it mean about us that we know about computers that if you wipe RAM is gone. So he should be lost. His personality
Right.
should be
Yeah.
lost. And that's like, so we're kind of broken in that way. And I feel like I've rectified that. I kind of like his interpretation of it, because I like the idea that it's not about after 700 years him turning to Eve and going, Eva, like, and there's recognition there. It's the idea of he's now a blank slate just as he was, and we lost that Wally, but Wally's eternal. Wally can in 700 more years, and Eve can for 700 more years redevelop this. Like, he's infected her with an idea, that hello Dolly idea, that out there idea. And she can
Have you heard the good news
reinfect-
about Wally?
Huh?
Have you accepted
Have you
Wally as your
accepted
personal savior?
as your robot savior?
Oh, that would most for sure happen, right? Where
Yeah.
they would.
At least as
Start
big as
to-
Flying Spaghetti Monster, you'd think.
I really think.
Well, I'm just.
Oh, you're saying in the movie.
In the movie, they would make the robots religious figures at
I
some point,
agree.
right?
salvation.
The
of some
future
kind, yeah.
civilization could not be structured in the same way that our civilization
Right,
is.
the religion.
The
would be-
robots would be like totemic figures that they are priests of.
and they
yeah, I
and
agree.
Yeah.
because they're in the same way that
They're like
we,
they brought us from the
I mean, they would be
stars and showed us
as
how to
close to
live.
gods as it gets, because
Yeah.
they're eternal. My one favorite robot of this movie is that I don't know how the transition is going to go for Mo,
Mo.
Mo.
Oh.
because as soon as he's the cutest little robot who's just a cleaner
Mo
robot.
would just stay on the ship.
He hates containment. He
could
has
keep
to
cleaning
get
the ship.
rid of
Yeah, he
contaminant.
would
Yeah.
keep cleaning the ship, or unless he was like programmed to be like, okay, we made this building.
Mhm.
Make sure all the dirt doesn't go into this building. Like it would, you'd have to
He
keep
would have
him
a
inside
Yeah.
of
Janitorial
places,
job, which is what his function is. you
which
know?
he seems all about. Mo
Well,
is
I mean,
such a
that's
great
what
little
robots.
robot.
We like to think that about robots. What is your purpose? You bring salt,
And that's so convenient. I don't know. Is that true sentience? If you're programmed to just enjoy whatever you're doing, is that cheating somehow?
I don't know if it's cheating, because we enjoy things like sex a lot. You know, that was programmed
for
in us.
yourself.
You don't like sex?
But I just like when you speak for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Own your voice,
I'm just
Abe.
Wally
you're
was
right.
going around bringing humanity to the other robots too, though, right? So like they
And
were
the
also
Roche.
on their own because the worker bot that led him into the elevator. He waved at it, and then the robot was just like
Learned
waving.
Learn how to wave,
Yeah.
right?
Like so, they're all innate. For some reason, all the robots have the ability to gain humanity as long as someone sparks.
But have
it.
apparently been cut off from
I
it
love that
since they've been from Earth, away from Earth.
I love the way you phrase that. Become humanity. Like just the idea that we have this thing that robots are want of, like they need it, and they're just a different organism.
Yeah.
No,
You
but
know? So
Wally.
they don't need, like, it's so
But
funny
obviously
that
you
we
like
make data.
it
No,
because
I do,
Wally does
because I'm a
become
human.
human-like.
Yeah, and if you look at Data's like prime directive is that he wants to learn what it is to be human. Why would that be true?
Pinocchio.
Yeah,
you
why
know,
would that
yeah.
be true though?
Is it
Like,
just pure curiosity, or is it in the programming?
well, that's the thing. Can you program curiosity? We don't even know what that is
Yeah,
until we can
may
define it.
someday, but
Well,
we don't
I mean,
yet.
Because that robot took a second from the moment he saw Wally wave at him, then we're gone from him, and then eventually you pass by him again, and he like, because he takes a moment to like feel like, do I like this? And he like, I'm like holding my hand up and down like I'm
Like
waving,
a
Right.
crab.
you know, and he's like testing it out, and then when the opportunity to do it again comes up, he does it like, oh, okay, I get what this is. So is he just like doing it because it's like, oh, something happened to me and I'm mimicking, or is it just like, do I actually like it? Kind of.
Yeah, you're right.
I think the
thing.
movie clearly posits that humanity is a thing that is good and exists tangibly, and Wally has it because he's on Earth and
Yeah.
he brings it to the other
Yet it is
robots. And I
ineffable.
don't know if I agree
Because that's also
with that.
could be how Wally started figuring it out. Like he saw something and was just, I'm mimicking it without thinking about it, and then all of a sudden, it clicked, and he's like, I enjoy making my hands do this. I enjoy that
Maybe.
sound.
That's why I think the best 4 minutes of the last decade of cinema to me is Define Dancing. That sequence.
Is it
where-
decade? Did it come out in 2008?
Yes.
Okay.
And
We're coming up on
I
not
know
being a decade.
10-year anniversary
Yeah.
of Wally. Jesus, good timely podcast.
Wally is Jesus.
But just that sequence is so beautiful to me because it's two robots actually dancing while it's the captain learning what even the term means.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the reversal of how we program robots, where we have this beautiful witness of this event that cosmically, oh, we're dancing now, and there's nothing, I can't even put words to it. I can tell you that these are movements, but I can't tell you what it means to me. Like, I can't define that. I don't have the ability or vocabulary. And the robots are the ones who are just like, hit up the dictionary, what is dancing? And here are these two robots outside of the ship doing it with a
Not
fire
actually doing it. They're actually in their own minds surviving being thrown into space using a fire
Oh, but they
extinguisher.
started enjoying it. They were
That's
dancing.
true. That's how it starts.
But then they have fun, yeah.
But
Yeah.
then they like
Play with
create
each
a
other.
helix.
Yeah.
They like play. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
It's
love
clearly
that.
a symbol for his jizz.
All right.
I love that moment too because it that's where I like finally get, at least me, become on board with Eve liking Wally back, like falling in love with him back, because the first thing you see, like, and they did a good job when they first introduced to her, she lands on the planet, and the first thing she does, she's just like, oh, I'm gonna stretch my little robot wings and fly around and have a good time and just enjoy moving
around
and being and
in this-
outside,
yeah.
you know.
I'm not in a box anymore.
And so
yeah.
she shares that that thing that she really enjoys doing with Wally outside the ship.
Yep.
And that
Yep.
I was just like, and now I'm on board with their love story.
And
Although-
he witnesses that, so he
Yeah.
fell in love with that.
yeah.
Right. Although it is still funny to realize that it's technically the story of a dude who sees the only woman he's ever
yeah,
seen in
yeah,
his
yeah.
life,
Yeah,
walks
sure.
up to her, is like, introduces himself, says his name. She shoots at him. So it'd be the equivalent of like pulling mace and being like, get the fuck away from me. Later, he finds her asleep and he forcibly holds her hand. And I'm like, that's a creepy.
It is. He
sequence
got
of-
punished immediately for
He
it.
did, he
Though, so
got
I kind of was
zapped.
just like, okay, like you're learning you cannot force that because
And
you're
they're
going to get
robots, so
hurt.
it's different social
Well, my
mores, but-
my question is: do robots dream of electric genders? Like, Wally's a man, Eve's a female.
I think so. I don't mean to impose
I mean,
that, but it
no,
seems
yeah.
like they're trying to invoke those genders.
she literally has a womb for
Oh, she does?
life.
carrier.
that you put your seed in.
Yeah. They
literally put a seed in there, and it's so that's obviously what the filmmakers
And
are
Wally
saying
has
to
those
make it
truck
relatable.
nuts on the back of
But
his
I'm
hitch
just saying that
through
they
the
don't
whole
have-
movie.
I mean, he also has a
Those
womb.
rubber truck nuts.
He also has a womb.
He also has a womb.
So it's the best
True.
lesbian robot story of all
Oh,
time.
I like
I would
that.
let's say they're lesbians. I'm totally pro that.
Yeah.
I would say that even Wally's concept of love, even during those moments where he's like trying to
Yeah.
just hold her hand, it's watching like a little kid just like I
It's-
like somebody. It's very, they made it so much like it's a child
It's supposed to be
trying to
innocent.
like understand or like figure something
Or
out.
an alien.
Curiosity.
It
Right.
wasn't. It was. I didn't read it as like
I agree.
an adult being.
But
a
he's
creep.
700 years old. It's like in Twilight when you're like, it's just a normal scene of two 17-year-olds making out. Wait, isn't he 92 years
Yeah,
old?
yeah, when you-
like
yeah,
internally, that's weird.
Yet another Louis C.K. bit brought
Wait,
from
what?
a 700-year-old.
Did he
Wally.
mention that?
No,
No,
I'm just
okay.
saying, like old Woody
Yeah, no,
Allen.
Twilight gets fucked with that just because
Yeah.
either that means he never mentally aged from 17, like he's 17 forever,
Right, yeah.
which is awful.
or he acts 17 to like blend in with that type of girl.
Yeah, and then that's just worse.
That's
so
even
I don't.
worse.
So
That's
there's
even
no
worse.
there's no helping that scenario.
Team Werewolf.
Team Werewolf. Yeah.
This is something though I want, because they're obviously making these gender politics of like a typical rom-com kind of idea. This boy meets girl, so to speak. Robot meets robot.
I think so.
so. They're obviously doing that because they want to make it relatable to us, which is something that Pixar does in spades. Like, I can't think of another production house that is so good at this. And I want to look no further than at the beginning of the movie, the spork joke, about this universality of joke, where if people don't remember, he's got a spoon bin, he's got a fork bin, and he's got a spork in his hand
That he
and
found in the world.
He goes between the two and he can't decide which one to put it in, so he puts it in between the two. Now that's a joke that a 7-year-old can get, and also a 5-year-old.
And I think notably it's the kind of jokes that Laurel and Hardy and Buster Keaton and shit would do.
Right.
I think they harken back to the
Yeah.
time
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's like, you can't mention anything in a joke. You can't mention who the president is. You have to mention things like an apple. Something happens with an apple because everyone knows what an apple is.
Yeah, how silly are apples? Yeah, but that's the thing about, they do this all the time. They do it in Monsters Inc. You know, anytime they talk about childhood, because we've all been children, they're really good at it because they just focus in on the aspect that they want to talk about. Toy Story 3 was a huge thing for our generation because we grew up with that trilogy. And so when it was the idea of like going off to college and leaving behind these objects and these memories that we shared and this imagination that we crafted, we losing a part of ourselves, right? So they really honed in on a very specific aspect of moving away. And in this movie, they're focusing on a very specific aspect of, they don't really have gender. They don't really have anything. They just have this want to be with one another. And that's the spork joke. That's the greatest thing ever that Pixar's ever done. Not the spork joke. That's great. But I mean, just that their ability to focus in on that universality is, I think, the power of Pixar.
I think it's that plus the fact that they use that to deliver messages that so like Disney, that it was born out of that tradition.
Sure.
All their themes are literally ripped off from the fairy tales that they're based on.
Yeah.
And they're like the Second Amendment, like they're meaningless now. Like the themes are like, be virtuous and the prince will like find you and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I like how Pixar has managed to do that even kids struggle with clinical depression, which was my interpretation of Inside Out. That like even when you're young, you should be aware your grandparents might die soon, which is touches on. And my hat is always off to them when they do that. Versus like, I guess Cars, where the message is like friendship is good, and I'm like, that's a good message, but every children's book knocks that out of the park.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I think Pixar is always not going
They
to
push
be
it.
accepted with just friendship is good. They're always going to say like,
That's
what
what Cars and
aspects
Monster
of
Inc.
friendship
are.
are we in love with?
Yeah.
You know, there's always a more complex question at the end of the tunnel, I think.
Well, and then Incredibles is basically Harrison Bergeron, right? Like, is it okay to be special or does it hurt other people? to be special.
But add on to that, what does it do to the family dynamic?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, Incredibles is way more about family dynamics and wanting to.
I think it's about
It's
both
both.
because
Yeah.
Syndrome's whole ethos is just that no one should be
no
special.
one's
which is
special
why
if everybody's special.
Which is
Yeah.
crazy. He's a good guy. Because, like, Harrison Bergeron, the story is to keep everyone the same, they handicap all the
Yeah.
people who have talent. And I'm like, I see why that's seems cruel. Syndrome was going to use technology to give everyone in the world superpowers.
I mean,
That's
it's just a bummer.
uplifting everyone.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it would have been great if he had just done that and not tried to like kill off all the heroes first.
Well,
I
he
mean,
got the powers by like sucking their spinal fluid out or something. I don't remember, but yeah.
he was just testing. He was testing a lot of his like machinery and shit on the heroes.
He
That
was
was
just
his,
also a dick.
yeah. But it's just like, well, just offer that technology, man. You would have.
Exactly.
I mean, clearly you were doing something because you made bank to be able to do that.
Mhm.
So keep
You
doing
own an island.
that.
You're doing all right.
Yeah.
Does anyone
You had minions, man.
does anyone else think that in WALL-E, like, I know that there's a symbolic notion and everyone's aware of it, but like just the absolute like zeroing in on like the relationship between WALL-E and Eva or Eve. She is the bringer of life and he's the disposal of life's remnants. Like that is such a life cycle if I've ever heard one, right? Like we come from nothing and we go back to dust, you know, like it's
Well,
just such a
But
cyclic,
he doesn't
wonderful
clear bones or ashes. He clears the waste we leave behind while we're
Right.
alive. So I'm like,
the memories of us.
I think it's a coincidence, but it's fun to decide what we think it means for no reason.
He doesn't-
You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. He
That's
also
what we're
never
doing here.
actually throws anything away.
No, he doesn't.
He compacts
stacks
it,
it.
But
he
it's
compacts
functioning.
it and tries to like make something new out of it, which are just these towers. But he's
Yeah.
building things with our garbage.
Yeah,
He
almost
doesn't-
always the function of the object that he's like enamored with. The function of it is not what he's interested in. He likes it because it's shiny or it has a like
He's
a frisbee.
aerial.
He doesn't understand
But
what
even
the
that's
frisbee's
just his
for.
like his function, like outside of personality. His function, he takes our garbage, stacks it,
Mm-hmm.
and puts it and builds something else out of it. Unlike like the ship itself, remember, like when we saw its garbage, it just tossed it into space. It didn't do anything else
That's a
with
good
it.
point.
And I assume the idea was that someday, or at least I mean when they set all the Wallies free, that would clear space for people to return to Earth. Like you got to stack all the garbage in a tower just so there will be room elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think his goal is just to compact stuff.
I
down.
think that I mean it's very much clear even in the
Is he
opening.
the last living one by the time the movie
At
starts?
least in his
in
section.
That
his
we ever
section,
see, though, right?
Because
Yeah.
there's many mega cities that they make.
For all
clear.
we know, there's like a whole other section of Wallies that like they have
Right.
their own culture and humanity because it's been
See-
700 years and they've all
I
interacted
want
with
to
each
see a
other.
Battlestar Galactica thing where the Wally civilization gets their feet under them, starts to explore the area, and they discover there's another ship that's been back for hundreds of years longer, and it's like, we will war on you and take
I
your
really like the idea
resources.
that there's more than one ship. I
Me
have
too.
because I want to believe that we've even with all the this is me trying to be optimistic that with all the garbage and if we're destroying the planet that we saved as many people as possible because BNL, while evil but not evil in the sense of like nefarious, just evil in the sense of like, oh man, we're real wasteful and we didn't know what
Mindless,
to do.
right?
So I just like the idea like there's got to be multiple ships and they're just all wandering because it's better to keep everybody like separated for like sake of, or it's just sadder like the other ships just didn't make it.
Right.
Like something happened
well,
to
that's
the other ships.
Battlestar, the 13 ships, only like one remains by the end. But
Yeah.
I guess don't spoiler alert for Battlestar Galactica. But yeah, I always wondered about that, and also if the death was just from pollution, because Pixar universe doesn't seem like the kind of place where there would have been like violent nuclear wars and cannibalism.
Yeah, no, it
and
just
the
seems
roads
like
and
Doesn't
shit.
seem that
it's
way.
straight up pollution
Then there
and
can't
lack
be,
of space.
Then there can't be 100% mortality. There must be people underground in like their 10 Cloverfield Lane buckers who are going to come out and
Or
be
just
like,
living on Mars.
you have a food maker in the Axiom? We're going to slit your throats in your sleep.
Take your
and
food
it.
maker.
Or just living on Mars.
Hit
Like
it,
maybe
Peter
there was
Gabriel.
a colony that's like on the ship. There's a colony that's like, yeah, like I mean, with all this technology, we have ships. Why wouldn't have they gone to Mars?
Man.
Like there's got to be humans on Mars
Dude.
just hanging out.
Wall-E 2, Wall-E Wars, where it's like, he won it with love. Now he must defend it with blood. And Wall-E's like, we will stop the Martians from taking the Axiom.
It's Rise of the Planet of the
I'm
Apes.
just mentally making fanfic where I'm like, what if the majority of Earth, like all the humans went to Mars, developed Mars, but Axiom, since that was the BNL, like rich people ship, they
Right.
went off.
It's the Deep Impact.
You
where
know,
buy
and
your
so
way
they
on.
were like, so they went off for 700 years because
That's
they
why
thought
it's
they
so
would be back.
luxurious.
Yeah, they thought they would come back, but like majority of humanity on Mars developed it. They have the same robots, they have the
Yep,
same tech.
yep.
Mars is fine. They figured out Mars, and then the rich people just went back to Earth and just like, well,
Then Wally has to decide an even more nuanced version of humanity. Like, did I back the right portion of humanity? When the Martians come and he's like, I will help you defeat the Martians. And the Martians like, whoa, we're also human. And the people you backed are the people who ruin the Earth. And he's like, oh,
Well,
shit,
shit.
I'm Wally. What do I do? I also want
I'm
to
on
see.
board. I'd watch this. I'd watch
I
this
want to
movie.
see Yoda fight Wally. They're the same size.
And he just his little 3 fingers just start spinning around.
Yes.
Oh man.
And Yoda like almost has him. He's flipping around, and finally Wally just traps him in his body. And you hear Yoda go, "No, please, no!" And he just gets compressed into a little Yoda cube.
And then, of course, the obligatory door open, flop out
Yeah.
box of Yoda.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yoda box.
Have you guys
And then he takes the lightsaber, looks at it, and just like packages it.
have you guys gone to any Comic-Con where you've seen like because they have those robotic booths where they have like a Wally?
No,
Have you
I've
ever
seen
done
a
that?
robotic Wally,
I have not.
but I've not been
If you
at
go,
this booth.
well, most conventions like they have like their BB-8s and your R2s,
Yeah.
but sometimes they'll have a Wally going around with the sounds and everything, and
Yeah.
the whole, and it's a delight. He's also way bigger than you think because they're like he's to
supposed
size,
to
and
be
he's
big.
Right.
he's like in your head
Oh.
you're like he's like dog size, like he's
I
little.
thought 2 feet.
No, he's
You're holding your hand at like 4 feet.
Yeah, he's a tall robot. Like he's and like big because I think those cubes aren't like little cubes. Like
I
what-
guess.
they're like a big like I want to say like a
3x3 kind of
bigger like a 5x5 boxes of garbage.
Well, then that means he's like 8 feet.
That's
'Cause
I
his
also
well
head-
maybe he's like his eyes. I mean I don't know measurements, but his
now
eyes.
her
would be,
hand's
like-
just shaking erratically.
Right.
Yeah,
like his
Okay.
eye height would be.
that's like 3.5 feet.
I did
Yeah.
wonder though, because even at that size, it's not as large as like let's say a semi truck. I always wanted to see what happens if he rolls up to a semi truck. Can he like fucking dismantle shit with his claws? Is he that strong?
Yeah.
Wouldn't he have to like rip fuel tanks apart, shove them inside himself?
I mean,
Not
there,
only that, he
there
would-
might
he
be
would-
bigger Wallies out there just for those purposes. Like he just might have been
Oh.
assigned for, you
We-
know, like
we-
cleaning a city.
We see them on the Axiom. There's things called like I forget willies,
Oh,
The-
Wallas.
wallas,
Because
wallays.
Wallays because
And they're a giant wally, so it could be
so
those, right?
I actually have this. What Wally stands for is waste allocation load lifter, comma Earth class. So the ones that you're talking about is
Axiom
waste
class.
allocation load lifters, Axiom class,
Nice.
and they're enormous,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, and they each have a Lewis Black inside of them, shouting angrily.
I just want.
Well, all Pixar movies have
I'm
to
just
be
tired
connected.
of all this waste.
Yeah.
I also am concerned for the humans like being on actual Earth gravity and how their bones that don't exist because they show that.
Yeah, bone
That's
loss.
that's what I'm saying.
Like,
is how
how
do they
are-
all live? They're atrophied. It doesn't make sense.
Very painful,
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
but possible.
Make
Drugs?
small trips outside, return to the Axiom, build up your tolerance.
Yeah, lots of
Yeah.
drugs. I'm sure that ship like they are high the whole time.
Yeah.
Also, I guess it wouldn't be as hard to start a civilization from scratch if you're like, but there is a room over there with a replicator. So like that helps.
Yeah, no one's starving. If you get exhausted, I'm sure there's little medical robots that come right back out and be like, "All right, here we're going to take you back and like fix you up, and then we'll put you right back
They
out."
kind of hint at it in the ending credits where it does like the kind of like growth from old like Renaissance art and cave paintings, and then it goes to like the 8-bit, which is one of my favorite things ever. Is that as the credits roll, it slowly develops its art form.
Yeah.
But something that I think is early on, I think it's when they're doing like the kind of like watercolors, you can see like some of they're still fat and they're like hoeing
Tilling the soil.
tilling soil, and like a few of them like put arms to their brow and like they're sweating and in pain, but they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just supposed to be a metaphor
And
for
I think
life.
they
Sometimes
showed
you
that the
have to
axiom
do
gets
work.
built into like a building. Like it
I also
Yeah.
like the idea that the robots have
structures.
secondary code because they were always meant to come back.
Right.
But all of a sudden, either more robots show up out of the ship, like, oh, we're finally here to do the rebuilding part.
That's
like
true.
that was
A bunch of terraforming robots could totally believably appear
arrive.
from space and be like, "We got Ava's signal."
we got the signal. Here we
So-
go, and
And
we're
I
gonna
love the
help.
guy tilling the soil is like, "Oh, thank Christ!" 'Cause I did not want to keep doing that.
And like Wally is like, but you're supposed to learn. He's
I-
like, shut up, Wally.
I also
Well,
love how
because
they
like the
do
robots
like.
on the ship start helping out farming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that must be secondary programming.
Right.
That's just like it's in their code.
Right,
to
because
be
you
like,
were a vacuum cleaner before.
yeah,
so
and now
yeah.
you're like helping make a farm. So it's in. I would assume it's in their programming.
Or they can
you go
all
back to
learn.
Earth. Now this is what you do.
or their programming is capable of learning.
That
Why
too.
wouldn't
Like
they?
they're that
I mean,
sentient.
they're BNL is obviously
Obviously, some of the
unprepared.
robots are capable of
So
learning.
they may have thought of this contingency and
Right.
thought of terraforming robots, but remember, these are also the same people who just did not know how long they were going to be adrift. So that's why Wally creates these columns that like essentially fall over in each other.
Yeah.
They didn't expect
It
the
to last as
columns
long.
to be that long or
Right.
large. So they don't have they have some contingency, but not necessarily enough. So who's to say? I do have a question for y'all.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Something that I realized on this viewing, which is if Otto's directive, which Otto didn't, I think voiced by Sigourney Weaver,
Yes.
Mhm.
yeah, became not to colonize any planet or at least go back home, and that was like this because of whatever logic that made like this is the best way for you to survive, and my whole directive is that you guys should survive. So the plan was never to go back home. Why even deploy EVAs? Why even send bots out?
Because the human captain would be like, "Why aren't we deploying Evas?"
But
Because it was
Otto has already hidden information from the captain.
because it was a directive for
I thought they
just
changed
for
their
Otto,
minds.
and I think once even with the program they're like the Eves will never come back with anything.
Also, I don't think
They weren't.
BNL.
The Eves were never supposed to come back.
I mean, it's
with
that
don't
second
anything
think
at all.
video, that
BNL
top
was
secret video.
right, and I don't think BNL maliciously wanted people to never come back.
No.
I think like 6 more months passed and they realized like we can't fix this, and then they were like, "Don't come back." But they had already set the program in motion.
So
the Eves, maybe.
So Otto doesn't have what Wally has, which is the ability to have
Change.
wants or emotion.
I don't think
Well, because
so.
nothing on the ship changes enough or is different enough for him for Otto
Shim.
to trigger curiosity or something different. Because everything always just went as programmed.
Also,
and
like
planned.
you said, I mean, their name is Otto, and I think, like you said, they represent the part of robots we don't like uncompromising logic that you can't get around. So I did get the sensation that Otto doesn't have sentience or learning capability. It's like a more
Yeah.
rudimentary
And I think-
program.
I
but
think
why
the
does
intent
Eve
was-
then?
I think the intent was that
so she can fall in love.
I was gonna say, I think the intent with Otto in particular is like Otto didn't need humanity because there was supposed to be a captain there. There was supposed to be a duo.
Right,
So
agreed.
the captain is humanity.
Sure.
Otto doesn't need it.
But if he says, then why does Eve need humanity? Or why doesn't he?
Because Eve has only been exposed to not her.
Why does Eve
programming
need to
for-
appreciate the joy of like, oh, it's great to get out and be on Earth? It's true, she doesn't.
Well,
she could
almost
have accomplished the
maybe
goal.
maybe programming Eve. This is me just making up stuff.
Helping, yeah.
Programming
Yeah.
Eve to be curious will help her in her aid to find plants and explore
Be a
the
better
earth
detective.
and
Yeah.
look for better signs
Like,
of life.
Yeah. For all we know, when you get to the point where you can actually program sentience, maybe you don't program seek out plants. Plants look like this. Maybe you program be curious and learn. If you ever come across a plant, that's what you're looking for. You know,
Yeah.
who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You made me realize by mentioning the credits another thing. The credits are problematic to me. They're cool.
Yeah.
But man,
Oh yeah, they go through so many different
introduce, like,
cultures. I'm like, you're
4
going through.
plot holes you didn't need to in the
I
credits.
was like, why are they making Egyptian art? Who's
Okay, this is what I'm getting at.
You guys are right. They should just keep it to white art. That's
No. They just
No,
came
it
a
was just
ship
like
where they're like, hey, remember watching movies and probably reading manga and knowing about Pablo Picasso and shit? Let's start over with cave paintings. Why? Wally demands we replicate human history from beginning.
Oh, I didn't expect that this is what like their art would be. It's just a way to do a credit sequence.
I thought it represent that they like relived every era
I
in
think it's
order.
symbolic. in nature.
I took it as like, oh, they are going through the process and like took it literal, and then in order
Really?
for me to like make it not problematic in my head, I had to go, this is just credits.
Because they can't do that.
'Cause
Why would
otherwise-
they do that?
I did not.
Because otherwise,
think that,
it's just like, oh, okay, they're learning how to be human again. Let's go through all the art cycles in human history to show that. And it's just kind of like, they wouldn't have had their own art. No one, like,
I would love it if Wally came out one day and he's
Like,
like,
crazy.
like they started with cave paintings.
everyone, Sumerian shit is dead. We're Egyptian shit now. Get to it, guys.
You guys
Start
are
doing
crazy.
Egyptian shit.
You are absolutely insane. The idea,
Yeah, I took it.
It's an homage to the
the
history
idea
of
that you
humanity.
guys take that credit sequence is literal. They had whatever fucking art that they had.
Or
This
all
has
of that is
nothing to say
one
about
guy. It's one guy on the ship or one girl on the ship who was just like, what is art? And the computer was like, this is art history and this is all of it. And that person was like, I'm going to learn all of this. And that one or two people or whatever,
That was Mo.
those group of humans were just like, I want to
Robot
learn
zero.
all of art. And they took it upon themselves to show how the new humans are like growing
No.
by copying these art styles themselves. That's the only way to kind of like maybe.
It's Thin Star.
I
Sweet.
love it. I love it though. I love that both
I like
you
your
guys
hustle.
are like doing the literal thing.
Just someone, just a big old nerd on the ship who's just like, I'm gonna learn how to paint.
Every style.
Every
and the
style
computer
that
just showed them, well, okay, this is how you start. And
This
it
is
started with cave
impressionism.
paintings, and you're like, okay, here we go.
That's fucking hilarious.
Because the person paints the captain most of the time, and like, so it's like, oh, you're painting your leader.
That's the thing is it depicts.
Maybe it's the captain.
It depicts the characters we know in these situations. So it's not a symbolic homage to the history of humanity because it depicts like the Cliff Clavin guy painting hieroglyphics.
No, it's-
Why is he doing that?
No, it's a parable of these 8 people, and those 8 people symbolically represent
I think
humanity.
it's like 100.
That's how movies
You
work.
don't think?
No, I don't think.
How many
it's
people are
hybrid.
on the Axiom when they land? Do you
Like
think?
6,000.
Right. Oh, you just said 8.
Whatever.
Okay. Well, somewhere in there, 8 to 6,000.
I think there's more. I think it's at least like
I think
10
it's
to
10 grand.
10,000 people.
I think it's 8 million.
All right, Andrew Stanton, hit us up. How many people live on the Axiom?
It's as big as several cruise ships, and cruise ships could fit a couple thousand people.
Obviously, a classy
so
cruise
it's like-
ship has a capacity of 4 crew cabins. We're talking
crew-
bridge.
Cabin
So
slam.
it could fit all of California on that ship.
There you go.
All of California?
Like all
Yeah.
the people. Yeah.
Isn't that like 40 million people?
I think so. I mean,
More than that?
Wait, you think the Axiom is as large as the state of California?
no, like people wise, like carrying amount of people, and like
It's much denser.
We also
Lands in a
don't-
parking lot.
and we also don't know the scale of like a lot of the cities. It seemed like everything went big and large. So
By and large.
like when the ship lands, there's still not a good context of like the size of the ship.
I think there is a pretty good concept of it because it lands next to like wheat and grass when they like it like opens up.
Fred
and they
Willard,
walk
can you
in.
sort this out? There
Yeah.
were 18,000 people on
Yeah,
the
I want to say. Nah, now I'm bumping it up. I think at least 1 million people on that
A
ship.
million people. I
can't
think
see it.
upper
I wonder
limit.
what they did with their dead.
Upper limit 50,000.
Shot him into space.
What
They
did
let
they-
Wally compress them and stack them
Oh
nearby.
God! Do you think they just reuse their nutrients? Because you're not going to want to waste
And they're like, hey,
anything.
cockroach.
Because
go
they're
nuts.
having babies.
You got to use every part of this.
Because they're
area.
having babies, but those aren't pregnant
Yeah.
people.
They're giant babies having babies.
Like no one's. I don't think anybody's really fucking.
Yeah.
They're not
They can't
interacting.
fuck.
I
Well,
have to
they're not
imagine-
interacting with each other.
I have
no
to
one's.
imagine for the first couple generations, robots are collecting semen and artificially inseminating the women.
Yeah, because we do see babies.
'Cause they can
Remember,
There
barely
are babies.
move.
There's a whole crew of babies. There's
Yeah.
like about 20 of them.
but like, how
It's
are
a
these?
passel of
How are we
babies.
popping out these babies though? It could just be
Tubes.
another robot.
Robot
Tubes.
breeding factories and C-sections.
Tubes,
it's horrid.
definitely.
Turns into a
No,
horrible
external
apocalypse.
wombs. It's tubes.
Oh, okay.
It's not even.
Test
it's like
tube babies.
yeah.
I especially love it because we already know that sometimes robots malfunction. They have a whole wing devoted to like the whole
The
ribbon,
sick bay for the
sick bay
robots.
for the robots. So if there are breeding robots and sometimes they malfunction, that's horrifying.
Oh man.
Because they're just like, oh, oops,
Oops.
we made a
Ripped your
new
dick
thing.
off. Sorry.
Or also just like Petri dish robot and just like, I made a dog human.
Yeah. That's what I always wonder about a replicator is if you can be like, if we fully understand the structure of a human brain, be like, give me a chili dog and make a human baby.
Oh, so do you think all those humans are clones?
Maybe.
That they're not. I mean, they're not. They're just clones of the. How many Johns have there been? How many Marys
Right.
have there been?
Yeah, is Cliff Clavin like Cliff Clavin prime? Yeah.
No, I think we see.
Do they mate even before Wally comes?
When
to the
we see the
Axiom?
picture of the captain, and the captain, I assume,
Yep.
is not bloodline
You're right.
system.
There's generations.
There's generations, but that might be a whole other like programming system on how to pick a captain.
Different captains are elected. It's not always the same clone.
Yeah.
Now
Like,
we're
that might-
Star Trek.
But I mean, like the regular
Yeah, let's talk about
folks,
Star Trek.
like, oh, there's a certain amount of people on the ship. There could only be a certain amount of people on the ship that
They
we
don't
can
have
do.
sex.
So I think
It
they're.
seems unlikely they
I
have
think they're
sex.
clones of each other. I think
Yeah.
after a certain
You think they're
point,
clones?
I think Wally and Eve have to teach them to make love again.
Yeah,
I
like
think
they're
humans
like
don't know how to make
well,
love.
there's definitely porn on those computers.
And of
Somebody's
course,
gonna ask the question one day,
That's true.
and then
So-
be like, "Where do babies come from?"
Well, they
Does
show,
that mean that,
but they
like,
show a
the-
classroom of little kids learning
yeah.
on the Axiom.
Those are replacements for the ones that
she's saying
died.
the clones.
Okay.
But I'm like, if Wally and Eva have to teach sex to humanity,
It would just be holding hands.
It would be holding hands and being lesbians.
No, it's leaning close enough that our electricity arcs between you. That's how babies are made. Were you
Yeah.
not aware? Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Oh man, I'm like, oh, were there vibrator robots?
Yeah, we're
on the
asking
ship?
too
Oh,
many
definitely.
questions.
There's
There's
pleasure
definitely
bots.
like you go to your room and there's other robots for yourself.
Oh, dude, they totally got a bunch of Jude Laws up in there.
Oh, yeah.
Of course,
like,
if it's a whole society where you're like, I live
wait a
in a
second.
floating chair and my every physical need is taken
Yeah.
care of, obviously sex
Yeah.
would be covered.
Yeah.
By
Not this time,
robots.
Jude
Yeah,
Law.
yeah.
Can you, Matthew McConaughey? You know what?
Yeah.
Just because that's a callback to one of our
Dude,
past sketches.
I mean, maybe it breaks down differently where you are on the gender spectrum, but a lot of men already have sex with a toy that's just like a cutout torso, like just the hips of a woman.
Right.
With a vaginal hole. I don't think they're gonna make a whole Jude Law robot. It'll just
Oh
be
no!
a dick
Oh no!
on
This
a
will be.
stick.
It's just their screen. You're still looking at your screen. You're looking at the screen, and there's something that comes and rubs your bits.
Right underneath the screen. It's just like a
there's
little
no-
Wally that is unhappy
There's
with
no
his
because they never looked at anything outside of the screen,
Yeah,
so they
that's
don't know
right.
what's rubbing their bits. They're just
Eh?
looking at the screen. It's just like
Rubbing their bit.
thing.
And the robot looks at the camera and goes, "It's a living."
So if we fail as filmmakers and storytellers,
Uh-huh.
the three of us are going to make erotic storehouse that's either called a stick with a dick or rub your bits.
No, Wally's Willy.
I like
Wally's
Wally's Willy. I mean, we could write these and put them up on
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Make bank.
Do
Yeah.
robots rub your electric bits? Well, that's our Wally episode. Make sure to listen to it with your young children because
Yeah.
it is a children's film.
And for the children out there,
yeah.
don't know what to say.
Define
To you. Why are you
dancing.
here?
Star, where can people find you online?
You could find me on Twitter at Starline X, but pronounced Starline X, but for spelling purposes, Starline X.
That threw me for a while because you would say that,
Yep.
and then someone had to correct me.
I always have to explain
Yep.
it. I'm like, spelling.
It's just easier to spell that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just easier to spell.
Abe
What?
the Mighty.
Abe the Mighty at Twitter, but you
You
find
know.
me here, Small Beans.
That's fine.
Wally.
Wally.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.